everyone, and welcome back to my channel. So in this video I just want to carry on discussing from where I left off last time, the article on whether ADHD and autism and other conditions were evolutionary advantages. Thank you for your comments. I'll try and do a comment video at some point as well when I've got through the other articles on this topic. So the article I want to go through now is a BBC article called "The Genes That Made Us Truly Human May Also Make Us Ill." And this was from November of 2023. And I think this is quite a nice article because it complements the Guardian article, and I think it's a much better scientific article on the topic. So I'm going to look at that now, and then we will get on to Russell Barkley at some point. So let's go through this article now. So it says, our ancestors' brains quadrupled in size, allowing greater behavioural flexibility. Skeletal, muscle and joint modifications that allowed them to walk upright. Rapid genetic changes may have helped us adapt to our environment. Scientists now believe they may have increased the risk of developing diseases such as Alzheimer's, schizophrenia, bipolar, diabetes, and osteoarthritis. The very same genes that help us walk on two legs are now associated with a heightened risk of developing osteoarthritis. The exact same genes that control the shape of the knee in developing embryos embryos are mutated in patients with osteoarthritis. Sometimes small, minor mutations in those genetic switches cause knee shape to be slightly different, and this altered biology is tolerable when young, so you have strong neuromuscular coordination and can walk just fine. But when you get older and weaker in muscles, those shape differences start making an impact. Again, the article also looks at the issue around bigger brains. So humans underwent a series of rapid evolutionary changes that allowed us to grow bigger brains with more neurons devoted to the outer cerebral cortex. That's the area of the brain responsible for higher order cognitive reasoning. However, many of the genetic tweaks which enabled these changes are now associated with autism, etc. For example, there's a gene family, Notch2NL, that appears to play an important role in the cortex development in humans, and may have been a driving force in the evolution of our large brains. The Notch signalling pathway is an ancient system used in all animals to control the fate of stem cells in the embryo, directing whether they divide and grow to form new stem cells, or differentiated to more specialised cells, or die. However, the specific Notch2NL gene is found only in humans. The first original Notch2 gene was duplicated. This is where a section of a genome gets copied. The new copy then moved to another spot in the genome. And then in the human lineage around 3.4 million years ago, the gene altered again through a process known as gene conversion. This time the new copy, notch 2NL, was functional. And right before this there was an increase in brain size. Now notch 2NL delays stem cells in the cortex of brain from turning into neurons. Instead, the stem cells carry on dividing and producing more stem cells. And this leads to more neurons being produced and bigger brains. Scientists have identified more than 36, I think that's right, I'm trying to read my handwriting, more than 36 gene duplications unique to our species. Some believe these duplications could be responsible for some of our uniquely human traits. For example, unique duplicated form of the sRGAP gene, sRGAP2C, sRGAP genes play a role in controlling number of connections or synapses a neuron makes with neighbouring cells. The more synapses a neuron has, the more information it can process. The new human-specific sRGAP, can't read my handwriting, GAP, C, doesn't really matter, it's just a list of numbers. Basically, the important thing is that the new human-specific gene allows humans to form more synapses and stronger connections between neurons. Although this may explain our species' unmatched brain power, the gene duplications may have left us vulnerable to neuropsychiatric disorders. For example, mutations in the regions of the genome where the notch is found, associated with ADHD, schizophrenia, autism, and intellectual disability. If you want to make more of a gene, a really easy way to do it is copy and duplicate the gene to give multiple copies that could all be turned on at once. But once you have that more complex control, there are more ways it can go wrong. For example, if a sequence in a newly copied gene is very similar to predecessor, it can sometimes confuse the machinery that makes copies of our genomes, leading to genes being moved around or combined in different maladaptive ways. Duplicated genes also contain repetitive sequences which make them more prone to additional deletions and duplications. And it's possible that some of the genes that make us human may be in areas of the genome that are prone to high mutation rates, making us susceptible to disease. So scientists have analysed the human genome to find the places that are changed most since our ancestors diverged from chimps. Many of the regions which have been named human ancestor quickly evolved regions were involved in regulating the developing brain. These regions also tended to be in areas with high mutation rates, and the mutations in many of these areas are associated with schizophrenia and bipolar. Such genes are now making us ill, as an evolutionary trade-off, pulling us in different directions. Another interesting thing, by the way, is the risk of developing cancer is inversely related to the risk of developing Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, because cancer is an uncontrolled growth of new cells, whereas Alzheimer's and Parkinson's are linked to cell death. So again, evolutionary trade-offs pulling in different directions. As I mentioned before, here the main trade-off here is in terms of what's relevant to what I'm talking about here is with the increase in brain size and more brain complexity associated with being human, Your trade-off there is an increase in brain disorders such as autism. It's also true that often the most recently evolved regions are the most often vulnerable to dysfunction. They might not have had time to evolve compensatory buffers to protect ourselves. So bearing in mind that autism and brain disorders in general come about through genetic variations or mutations in recently evolved parts of the brain. This is very unstable region. I mean, comparatively very recent in terms of evolutionary history. So there might just not have been enough time yet for these malfunctions to actually have been weeded out. Bearing in mind we're still evolving. But obviously, you know, in many ways, it's a bit different now in terms of human evolution because of the way we live. You know, there's a lot more in the way of safeguards as well, and so on. So it's a bit different to, you know, the sort of wild kind of jungle living of the past, in terms of how evolution operates. But nevertheless, it is perfectly possible that some of these traits will become less common in the future if things settle down a bit. We'll have to see. Anyway, I thought that was a good article. I mean, obviously, again, this is still quite hypothetical, and there's lots of mays and, you know, because, you know, maybes and so on, because obviously, whenever you're looking at sort of evolutionary history, it's very speculative. But this article obviously counteracts the idea that somehow ADHD and autism have evolutionary advantages. You've always got to look at, you know, the other, what other scientists have been talking about, and I'm going to get on to Russell Barkley's debunking of the evolutionary idea of advantage in next video, because that will take a bit of time because he provides a very good scientific debunking of the whole evolutionary advantage idea. Okay, so thank you for watching.